About 5.5 years ago, I moved to my current place, and one of the early things I did was to replace the frequently used lights with LED bulbs to save on long-term costs. Now, I've had some LEDs fail prematurely when compared to their 10 to 20 year advertised lifespan. So, is this still worth switching to LEDs despite the failed bulbs? The short answer is yes. But to see why, stay tuned for more information. There's a lot of data, so unfortunately I'll have to make this into a mostly PowerPoint presentation for the video, but at least you'll see where I'm coming from. I decided to skip the fluorescent bulbs because they can take longer to get bright, and also they have mercury, which means that they're toxic. So we'll only have LEDs for this video. This is by no means 100% scientific, but I want to try to get it as close as possible. I'll break this video down into the following sections: terminologies, what's included, what's not included, the setup, calculations, and then my conclusions. Before we start, an important note is that watts is a unit of power that measures the rate of energy, not how bright a bulb is. To find out how bright a bulb is, you can use lumens. When I was first learning this, it was a bit confusing. When you see rate, you normally think of something to the effect of something per second, but watts doesn't actually say seconds, which in my opinion adds to the confusion. You can think about this as in unpacking boxes. If your bulb is rated for 10 watts, that doesn't tell you exactly how much energy it actually used. It's like saying I can unpack 10 boxes in a minute. There's a time factor that's required to see how many boxes you actually unpacked. Without it, it's sort of meaningless. This is where kilowatt hours come in. In the same analogy, that would equate to the number of boxes I actually unpacked based on how fast I can unpack boxes. It doesn't specify the number of boxes since it depends on how fast you're unpacking. Now you may still be thinking, why is this kilowatt hour unit so weird? Another example you can use is driving a car. It may still be a little bit confusing, but hopefully adding numbers can help this time. If you're driving a car, the rate of which you're driving can be associated with watts. So, watts can be correlated to how many miles an hour or kilometers per hour you're driving in a car. A kilowatt hour can be correlated to how many miles or kilometers you've driven at your current speed. Again, this is not a fixed amount of miles or kilometers, but it represents the number of miles or kilometers based on how fast you're driving. If you're going faster, you'll have a larger number here. Let's say you're going 100 kilometers an hour, which is about 62 miles an hour. I've broken this out so you can see the unit conversion. When you're going 100 kilometers an hour for 2 hours, you've already traveled 200 kilometers, whereas the speed alone doesn't tell you how far you went. 200 kilometers in this example can be represented as 100 kilometers an hour, which no one says. Essentially, the unit is 100 kilometers and the hours cancel each other out. In terms of electricity used, you can see how this correlates with kilowatt hours, and if you really want, you can change watts to joules per second. But let's not complicate stuff even more, so let's move on. Alright, so what did I include in this observation? I included lights that are the most used around the house, and there are different brands and types of LEDs, which I'll go on in more detail. This totals to 22 bulbs. To simplify this experiment, I will not include bulbs that are recently purchased. Again, this is a 4.5 to 5.5 year time frame. We don't want to factor in bulbs that were recently added and complicate the calculations. Also, I did not include any smart or color-changing LED bulbs, any external bulbs because of the extreme temperatures that they face, bulbs that failed quickly, and I consider this within the first month of usage. Now, I do have both A19 and BR30 bulbs. The A19 are your regular looking bulbs and the BR30 are for your recessed lights. Some are dimmable, but 99% of the time I have these bulbs at full brightness, so I'll exclude the dimming feature from this observation. At any point, feel free to hit pause to take a closer look at my data. Here's my current setup. I'm first going to start with the LEDs I've replaced, followed by what would have happened if I stuck with the incandescent bulbs. Some of these are switched on and off pretty quickly while others are switched on for a longer term. For the ones that are switched on and off pretty quickly, this can cause an incandescent bulb to wear out quicker because of the filament, and I noted these with an asterisk. For the most part, these replace the 65-watt soft white incandescent bulbs. The kitchen bulbs are the exception. I've replaced those with a little bit brighter ones, and those are daylight bulbs. They're more white in color compared to the yellowish soft white color. To simplify the calculations, I am using my current bill as an example, and I pay 6.37 cents per kilowatt hour. Yours may most likely be different. I'm going to take a second and highlight the office lights. The reason why this row was highlighted is because the usage had drastically changed since the COVID-19 pandemic happened. In the next slide, I'll estimate the overall usage per day, even though they were pretty different since I started to work from home 100% of the time. Prior to COVID-19, I worked in the office Monday to Friday. That being said, I've averaged this out to 1.9 hours per day. In the next slide, I calculated the cost over 5 years with electricity, factoring in the initial cost of buying the bulbs and any that were replaced. If you're interested in creating your own spreadsheet, I have broken down the formulas I've used here. With my experience of incandescent bulbs, the longevity was all over the place. Some of them last for as short as a month, while others lasted much longer, but probably because they're less frequently used. According to EnergyStar.gov, an incandescent bulb normally lasts 1,000 hours, which means if you use this light bulb for 3 hours a day, it will last for 11 months. Here, I've added the projected cost for 5 years. Please note that the initial cost would be zero because I assume the bulb already comes with the house without an additional charge and without you having to buy them first. The cost of the bulbs will be factored in when it comes time to replace them. I calculated the number of bulbs going bad using the 1,000 hour lifetime from EnergyStar.gov, and I rounded them down since any number less than 1 means that the bulb did not go bad yet. After factoring in the 1,000 hour lifetime of these bulbs, here is my formula for the calculations. It's similar to the LED bulbs, except they don't include the initial purchase since, again, when you buy a house, it should come with the lights pre-installed and there's no upfront costs here. Now, I'm pretty sure most people will tell you that LEDs cost less to run than incandescent bulbs because they use less power. But what if you had LED bulbs that fail? Even though they don't fail as often as incandescent bulbs, they do have a much higher cost to them when you need to replace the bulbs. In the example of my office, 3 out of the 4 bulbs failed within 5 years. And that's much shorter than the advertised 10 to 20 year lifespan of these LEDs. But even with that happening, we can see here that the energy consumption and the bulb replacement costs still yields a higher cost for an incandescent bulb compared to an LED. After crunching some numbers, according to the data, we have saved over $400 in costs in the past 5 years just by switching over to LEDs. And anyone can do this. And this also factors in that some of the LED bulbs will fail prematurely before the 10 to 20 year lifetime that is expected to last. But hey, let's take this one step further. Hypothetically, if we said the lifetime of the incandescent bulb tripled, let's crunch the numbers and see what happens. The energy alone would still make LEDs a cheaper option. And that's all the time we have for this video. Did the data go along the lines of what you expected, or was it surprising? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I'll try my best to answer them. I'm not an energy expert, nor do I claim to be one. I did take a class on energy efficiency some years ago, and I've done some additional research now that I'm a homeowner. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps support me in making more videos just like this. Take care, and I'll see you next time.